this is Linda Cohn from ESPN, and you're listening to the ML Sports Platter.
The ML Sports Platter, back with you all over the major platforms: Spotify, Google, Apple, Stitcher, Deezer, anywhere else you get your podcasts on your smartphone device. And you know the drill. If you have an Apple phone, for example, find the podcast purple button. Everyone has its own podcast icon. Once you're there, you hit search and then just type in ML Sports Platter. Hit subscribe. Leave some feedback and a 5-star review. The ML Sports Platter, all a part of the Brawl Network. And hit me on Twitter, at Mike L. Sports and at Network Brawl. And check out all the other podcast shows. Great talent and content across the board. This podcast is presented by Bryant and Stratton College, Stanley Law Offices, Liverpool Physical Therapy, and Rosie's Corner. If you're in and around Central New York, pizza, pasta, hot and cold subs, the wings are to die for as well. Rosie's Corner is a proud ML Sports Platter sponsor. I am thrilled to bring onto the program a college football Hall of Famer, a 2-time national champion, a guy whose resume speaks for itself, and his teams won 2 national championships in 1989 and 1991 at Miami. How about this record as a college football head coach? 179, 96, and 1. And he was also head coach of 2 teams in the NFL, the Seattle Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers. We bring him in, Dennis Erickson. Dennis, it's Mike Lindsley. Thanks so much for coming on.
I'm doing really good. I'm out here in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and right on the lake here, and a little cold, but it's a good life.
Nice. Well, let's start just kind of, reminiscing a little bit. I mean, the Miami days were some unbelievable times for you, and it was when it was the you, and it was the swagger and the winning and the national brand and program and all the rest. Do you think back to those times and just kind of shake your head at the amazing accomplishments ever, on a day-to-day basis now?
Yeah, without a question. I keep in contact with a lot of the guys that played and those that coach with me there, and obviously, you spend time. We're going to have a reunion of the 1991 National Championships next fall, and we've already had one with the '89 championship, and had a great turnout. So, yeah, it was an amazing ride. It really was. It was obviously, those jobs are probably harder than most because you got to follow guys like Howard Snellenberger and Jimmy Johnson in there, and who had won national championships, but. We were able to do that. I was there 6 years, and we won 2 of them, and had a chance to win a couple other ones. So, but yeah, it was really fun. I learned a lot about a lot of different things coaching in that program. I mean, football was the most important thing to those players. Coming out of high school, a lot of them were from the state of Florida, of course, but we had them from other places, and they were fun to be around. The swag, that's exactly what happened. I mean, it taught me about swag. It was a lot of fun coaching them.
I'll tell you, back in those days too, it was just a who's who of names through the years of pro football players, and in some cases Hall of Famers. Future, you're one of those Hall of Famers. You're a college football Hall of Famer, which is it's an awesome honor. You speak to the swagger there, Dennis. Did you guys, was it a week to week, just you felt like you were going to win every week because of how confident and good you were? I mean, you have to know at some point how good you are.
Oh, yeah, there was no question that, going to Miami from where I'd coached before at Washington State, we had a couple good seasons, or one good season there, but it was different than any place I've been because just what you said, they practiced, played like they knew they were going to win every game. That was the attitude. And they had fun playing the game. People call it swag and celebrating and all those different things, but it's just how they played. That's how they were raised. And, I used to get upset, when people would, say bad things about what celebrations and all that stuff. So forth, because our guys were just having fun playing, but they were good players too, so they were very intimidating most of the time.
So you obviously went on to, and we'll kind of start mixing it in here, your college and your pro careers, but you ended up going to the NFL and coaching the Seahawks, and you coached the 49ers. A lot of times players, Dennis, will say from Power Fives, 80,000 capacity stadiums, the Alabamas, the Miamis, the LSUs, the Florida States, Florida, Oklahoma, across the country, that when they get to the pros, there's no deer in headlight moment when you run out of the tunnel, because frankly, in some cases, you're playing in front of less fans in the NFL than you might in the college. What is it in the college ranks? What is it like for a coach, though, to go from those, one situation to the next? Is it kind of similar in terms of, well, there's no way I'm going to face more pressure here than I did at Miami. We got to build a program that was, picked to win every week, right? So is the pressure kind of like that same feeling like with the players that you don't even bat an eye at it at that point?
Well, the NFL obviously is different because there's a lot of influence from a lot of people in the organization, and the people that run the organizations, they let the head coach do things that he wants to do, and you got a chance to win. You look at the NFL teams that have had success over the years, and that's what happened. Yeah. The coach had the final say in everything that went on. But that's not how it is with every team. Every team, you don't have the choice of your players. It's the scouts and sometimes general managers, depending on what kind of a program you're in. And those that do have the final say are very successful. So it's different because everything's so equal in the National Football League. Any given day, anybody could beat anybody, and it's about money, spending money, dealing with the cap, different things that you obviously don't deal with in college. And the players aren't different. The players, if you can teach them and they can learn from you, become better players, they're going to do that. So people always say it's hard to coach those guys, but it really isn't, because they all want to be really good. But yeah, it was different because you just so close all the time. One turnover or fumble or something like that in the NFL can cost you. At Miami, we had better players than most of the teams that we played, so it was a little bit different that way, and it was a learning experience for me. And the Seattle situation was good. We did a really good job there. Got turned around, and then they made an ownership change. Obviously, when that happens, as you know, and you're in an area right now where the NFL is big, but when that happens, and then you normally make a coaching change. That's what happened with us in Seattle, and then the 49er thing. That was just a dumb move by me because that situation wasn't very good from the top to the bottom. So I'm glad I had that experience. Had I done it again, I don't think I probably would have ever left Miami. That's things in the past.
We're chatting here on the ML Sports Platter with Dennis Erickson, of course, the Miami coaching legend and former coach in the NFL as well. You were part of those crazy Florida State-Miami games, that rivalry, the wide right one. What was Florida State-Miami week like for you?
Oh, they're the most fun that we had. A lot of those players on both sides played against each other in high school, and they knew each other.
Sure.
And in those days, the best athletes in all of college football were on that field when those two teams played, because at that time they were the two teams were probably faster than any of the other teams in college football. And to me, it was all about speed. Guys could really run in that in that game, and guys were flying all over the field. So it was an interesting series. Bobby Bowden, one of the great coaches of all time, and had the opportunity to coach against him 6 times. And was fortunate enough to win 4 of the 6, and 2 wide rights, as you were talking about.
Yeah, no doubt. Can you go back maybe and recall, Dennis, a couple of players? It's very difficult to just pick one, I know. But guys who you saw, whether it was on your team or the competition, where you were just like in awe of the player, like, whoa, this guy's going to be fill in the blank. Do you remember the awe factor with some players?
Well, yeah, there's no question about it. In our program, there was a whole lot of them that played in the league, and that were outstanding athletes. I think back to Cortez Kennedy, who is no longer with us, but he was a defensive tackle that dominated the football game like I've never seen before. When he was gone, we had a guy by the name of Warren Sapp that was basically the same way, and they both obviously are Hall of Fame pro football players, and those guys were really, really, really special. The quarterbacks we had Craig Erickson, who played in the league. Gino Schroeder won the Heisman Trophy. But you look back at some of the players that we played against. You look at Florida State with Deion Sanders and Marvin Jones, a linebacker, and you look at Notre Dame, the Rocket. Was a awesome football player. So you go through it, and there are a lot of good football players in that era, and a lot of good ones that we competed against. But we had a lot of for me to name players, Ray Lewis was a pretty darn good player himself. So,
yeah.
He was pretty special. So you hate to leave anybody out, but it's. I'll tell you, it was really a shock to me when I got to Miami and saw how the players practiced, the type of speed that that they had at Miami when I was there. We kept getting those kinds of guys, but the speed factor was the biggest thing. That probably took us a little further than most. We were particularly on defense, and we had guys, and the theory was you recruit a linebacker that's 235, 40 pounds, and he ends up playing defensive end. So instead of being a pretty fast linebacker, he becomes a real fast defensive end. And we would take safeties, and they'd end up being linebackers. So you're taking guys and moving them, but that just gave you all kinds of speed on the football field.
I tell you what, you're really nailing it there with the speed thing, because you watch 3:30 SEC football games, and then you watch a Pac-12 game, or you watch a MAC game, or you watch an American Athletic game, or whatever the case may be, and you're like, whoa, this is a little different. These guys are getting to the gaps quicker. They're getting to the sidelines quicker. They're almost just on the ball in the snap of a finger. And I, live 15 minutes or so north of Syracuse. I grew up with Syracuse football in the heyday in the 80s and 90s in the Big East, and that conference well, obviously. And back then they had it, right? Now they don't, have as much speed, and the game has changed a lot. And when you're playing a faster team. What do you think in transitioning, having said all that, to today's game? And the way it is with the offensive explosion, and obviously we know bigger, faster, stronger through the times as everything evolves. But do you see more similarities, more differences from back when you coached, and the speed element now has really got to open your eyes, right, Dennis?
Yeah, there's no question about it. And obviously the Southeast Conference has probably got more speed than any league. That's just how it is. That's kind of the nature of where you recruit, and it's different than the Midwest or even California, and so you see that in the ACC and the SEC both. And you look at Clemson and obviously Alabama and Auburn, all those teams, and that's the biggest difference I see now. I know that when we played Nebraska for the first national championship, I talked to Tom Osborne after the game, and he said, "Well, how did you get this speed?" And so I kind of went through our recruiting deal and what our theory was. And then the next time we played them for a national championship, which they won, their speed on defense was way, way better than it was the first time we played them. So Yeah, it's different. I look now, everybody's spreading them out. We kind of started all that stuff, to be honest with you, when I was coaching at the University of Idaho, and then on through. I mean, we were playing with 3 and 4 wides all the time, and you didn't see that. So what happened is, you've got 3 wides in there or 4, and they don't substitute on defense then. So now you got a linebacker on a really good receiver.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then what happened, and how it's changed now, is that everybody's doing that, and they're putting an option in with it. I mean, that's what everybody does. But what's happening to the defense is that you got to start playing, 5 and 6 DBs in there. And then all of a sudden, okay, you get 6 DBs in there, and shoot, you're going to run the football at them. So you're taking guys out of the box. And so that's the biggest difference now. Everybody's spreading it out. And we were really one of the first, probably the first college football to spread it out. Started doing that when I was an assistant for Jack Elway at San Jose State, and John's father. And, so now everybody's kind of doing the same thing. Doing it in the NFL now. I mean, you look at the quarterbacks in the National Football League, those guys they can run. Mm-hmm. And if you have a statue back there, you're not going to have a lot of success.
There's no doubt. And through the years, as you went on, you really are a prototypical example, Dennis, of somebody who, climbed the ladder. And there are a lot of, guys who have done that. The Sabans have done that, where you start small. You start as a grad assistant. You build yourself up, OC, head coach, etc. Smaller program, bigger program, huge stage, championships, Miami, the U, the brand, the NFL. As you kept climbing up and up and up and up the ladder, get into the grind a little bit. And then obviously I know that you bounce back to college too, but the grind of that lifestyle is just, it's hard on the human body, isn't it, Dennis?
Yeah, it is. It's hard on the human body. It's hard on the family. When you're moving, my wife Marilyn and my 2 sons, they moved all over the darn place.
Yeah.
Starting at Montana State where I played, and being an assistant at Fresno under Jim Sweeney, and San Jose State under Jack, and then being head coach at Idaho, and then moving to Wyoming for a year, and then back to Pullman and to Miami, and it's really hard on the kids because they got to move all the time, and it's and the wife, and so it's really a difficult job. It really is in that aspect of it. So,
did you know early, that you wanted to be a head coach? When did you start to play with the idea?
Well, I just wanted to coach. My dad was a high school coach in Everett, Washington, right out of Seattle, and he was a head coach at a high school in Everett, and then he left and went to the University of Montana as an assistant coach many years ago, back in the 60s, and then he left there and went with Jim Sweeney to Washington State, so he coached in college too. So, I was around it all. I was in locker rooms when I was 5 years old, and riding buses and going to games and doing all that type of stuff. So I always wanted to coach. That was what I was going to do. Being a head coach, that didn't even enter my mind really. I just wanted to coach. My first coaching job was I was a head high school coach at Billings Central High School, Catholic High School in Montana. And I thought that was the greatest thing in the world. I just wanted to coach, and wasn't really even thinking about being a head coach. And then, once you start doing that and you have some success, then you get those opportunities. And it was, I enjoyed coming up through the ranks because I think you need to do that to really be good at it.
Yeah, there's no doubt. A couple more for Dennis Erickson, the College Football Hall of Famer here, of course, 2-time national champ with the Canes, and a 3-time Big East champ, 2-time Pac-10 champ, 3-time Pac-10 Coach of the Year, 3-time Big East Coach of the Year, and a State of Washington Sports Hall of Famer. You're in a couple of Hall of Fames. College Football Hall of Fame, the Sports Hall of Fame, the State of Washington, Dennis. It's tremendous. Congratulations on both of those. Those are there forever. They can't ever take those away from you. Do you remember those days when you got the call, you got inducted, and that's that's kind of the point, or a baseball Hall of Famer or a Pro Football Hall of Famer. Let's say, this is the pinnacle, and you think it, you feel it, that you're probably being that category, but until you get. I look at Charles Woodson on that NFL Network. I can't stop watching that clip where they tricked him, where they show up and say congrats to Canton, right? And you see him just lose it. Of course, he probably knew that he was a first ballot Hall of Famer, but the moment is when it hits, and it's like, oh my goodness, it really is here. Take us back to those days for you.
Well, it's just it's the same thing. The College Football Hall of Fame is a pyramid of college coaching, and you look at all the guys that are in the Hall of Fame, and to think that you're in the same group as those guys. You think about Bear Bryant, for example, and all the guys that were in the Hall of Fame, and to be considered with them as a football coach is pretty amazing to me and pretty exciting for me. And that, and when you get an award like that, it's not just Dennis Erickson. It's Dennis Erickson's family. It's Dennis Erickson's coaching staff that we all work together as one, and so they all deserve the honor. So that's what's fun about it, because there are a lot of people involved in any success anybody has.
So back during the Miami days, obviously, it was a different world, Big East Conference, now everybody went from the Big East to the ACC to Miami and Syracuse and Boston College and Pitt and Va Tech and on it goes. Do you remember much about the Central New York visits in the Carrier Dome?
Oh yeah, without a question.
Yeah,
and it was some pretty good players. Marvin Gray, you can go on and on about those guys at Syracuse. Playing in that dome was fun. We had some great games with them. Boston College, they were tough. All the time.
It was a pretty good conference,
Oh yeah. Frank Beamer did an unbelievable job at Tech.
Yep.
And he's one that's in the Hall of Fame too. So.
Yep.
Yeah, that was fun. I mean, we were there when the league started. When I first went there, we were in a league, and then they put that league together, and I thought it was a darn good football league. West Virginia was pretty darn good.
Sure.
I mean, there were good teams, and I don't know how it happened and how they got out of that league and went to ACC or SEC, but we were never in the SEC the ACC was, of course, when I was coaching. We weren't in that league, but they've got it. The ACC is becoming a really good league besides the SEC. And we didn't play a lot of teams in the South. We didn't play. Obviously, we played Alabama when we were playing for the national championship. But we didn't schedule very many Southeast Conference teams in the period of time I was there. And of course, there weren't playoffs or anything like that. You kind of held on when they were voting to who was number one. That's just how it is. I mean, the first one we won in '89. We beat Alabama, and I think Colorado got beat or somebody got beat. We ended up coming in the back door because Notre Dame had beat it. Florida State had beat us, and so it's fun, and you look at that. I mean, really, for us, that was the only thing we had, because it wasn't, a real league to start with. It was just a national championship or bust. That's how it was.
Yeah, and it was so fun. I mean, I was a kid, going to the Dome and seeing all those terrific teams. And remember the '91 season when you guys won it all. Syracuse was pretty good. I mean, they were top 15, 10-2 that year. Won the Hall of Fame Bowl, and rosters littered with NFL guys too. And it was just a really good time. I've said for a long time, I think college football, now it's just, man, it's really Alabama, Clemson, and I know Ohio State this year, but for the most part, the last several years, it's been Clemson, Alabama, and everybody else. And back then it was maybe 5 to 8 teams that were those powers with crazy great rivalries and so much going on. And that era was really something. I mean, when you think about the mid to late 80s into, through your time into the mid to late 90s almost sort of thing, a little bit pre-BCS, you had the New Year's Day games back-to-back. You had Nebraska, Oklahoma every Friday after Thanksgiving, right? So it was that time that was so special. Dennis, final question for you. If you could use a mulligan anywhere in your career, where would you use that mulligan? Where's the do-over for Dennis Erickson?
Well, that would be easy.
NFL?
Well, not the first time.
Yeah.
I had to find out what it was like. It was just, I was at Oregon State and we had turned that thing around, and the year we beat Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl, in 2000. Wasn't even close. And I didn't do my homework on the 49er job. At that time it was a mess because ownership changes, and Barlow wasn't there any longer, and I made a stupid decision to take that job and leave Corvallis, Oregon, which I really enjoyed, and the fans were great because they hadn't won much, and so that's where I take my mulligan right there.
Well, it's amazing. You think back to certain things like that, and what could have been, but you would had the resume and the success. I mean, it speaks for itself, and it's just, I go through it all, and it's just been really terrific to have you and to chat with you again. Dennis Erickson, the two-time national champion and college football Hall of Famer, the college football coaching legend here on the ML Sports Platter. I can't thank you enough, Dennis. Again, I've been a fan for a long time. It's just been really awesome to hear your stories and share those with me here on the podcast, and hopefully we can chat down the line and enjoy life outside and get the nice air, the nice breeze.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
The ML Sports Platter brought to you by Empower Federal Credit Union. Log on to empowerfcu.com today. That's empowerfcu.com. Find your peace of mind with Empower Federal Credit Union. A big thanks as well to Barks and Rec Doggy Daycare, Camillus Golf Club, Hides of Liverpool, and Stanley Law Offices. Together, they'll work to get you the maximum award. Log on to StanleyLawOffices.com. That's StanleyLawOffices.com. ML Sports Platter, big time thanks to Dennis Erickson. Terrific interview. The NFL and coaching great, College Football Hall of Famer, two-time champion with the Hurricanes of Miami. Man, those teams were nasty back in the day when it was actually the U. Hit me on Twitter at Mike L. Sports. Be on the lookout for my ML Sports takes and 9 Minute with Mike Lindsley segments all over Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and all the other social media platforms as well. And, of course, I'm on Instagram, Mike L. Sports 1979. The ML Sports Platter, all under the Brawl Network, at Network Brawl on Twitter. As I always tell you, enjoy the games.